All right, so you've got a wedding coming up and you want to plan and prepare to make it awesome. What is the best way to go about doing that? Is today's topic of the Wedding DJ School podcast. Hey friends, my name is Josh Mitchell, and this is the Wedding DJ School podcast, where the goal is to help you create a wedding DJ business. So not to just become a great DJ, that is a really important thing to do, but really to build a business that is repeatable, a business structure that allows you to create success over and over again. I want to help you to do that, and on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the planning and preparation aspect of that. Before we move on, I want to remind you about the free action guide that comes with every episode of the podcast. You can get that by going to weddingdjschool.com/podcast. Select today's episode. Today is number 7, and you can get a free PDF that puts today's information into action for you. You know, we are so busy these days, it can be easy to forget things and to not take something and put it into action, but I don't want that to be the case for you and the information on this show. So you can do that by also texting into 44222 is the number. Text the word wedding DJ, all one word. We'll ask for your email address and then get the PDF guide to you that way. Again, the number is 44222, and then in the message, just type wedding DJ as one word, and we will get that action guide to you. We always say this, but it's really important. It's really true that when you take information and put it into action, that's when it becomes valuable. And I really want this podcast to be valuable for you. So today we're talking about the best way to plan and prepare for a wedding. And I believe the best way to do that is to use a living document. Using a document that outlines everything that you're going to do for the wedding, everything that you're going to commit to in a very clear and concise way that communicates it both for yourself and it communicates it for the person that's going to use it, meaning the client beforehand and then the vendors and the other people that are making the wedding happen on the day of the wedding. So this is where I really talk a lot about the timeline. A timeline is a document that just lists out pretty much in chronological order what is going to happen on the wedding day so that you're very clear how the day is going to run, but also the other vendors can see where they fit into that mix. Very typically, the DJ prepares the timeline. Now, this isn't the case all the time. Sometimes a wedding coordinator or wedding planner plays a role in creating the timeline. And sometimes photographers like to have their own timeline with special checklists of the kind of shots that they're going to get throughout the day. But the DJ should also prepare a timeline and also work to make sure that it's reconciled and consistent across the other timelines that exist for that day. So, what needs to be included on that timeline? I would advocate for pretty much everything. Anything that is going to be important to the couple is going to be important to you as the DJ because you need to know the bird's eye view of what's happening, what needs to be announced, when is the couple going to be around, when might they be off taking sunset photos. And having all of that information on the timeline is going to help you to be able to frame your work and your entertainment in the best way possible. And it's also going to allow the other vendors to be on the same page with what you're expecting for the day. So the tool that I recommend for this is Google Docs. The reason I recommend Google Docs might be obvious if you're familiar with it, but it's that you don't have 100 different versions. So you create version 1 and then something changes and then you create version 2. When you're using Word documents or PDFs or stuff like that, you have to keep revising it over and over and over again. And sometimes you're not really sure if that document is the one that's most up to date. So when you use a Google Doc or you use a living document, you can keep that frequent without having to save a bunch of different versions of it. And plus, you can add a lot of different collaborators, a lot of different people to contribute to that document without much hassle. So I recommend Google Docs for that. There's other solutions out there like Quip. I know that other services as well, like Dropbox has their version called Paper. Microsoft has their version of Microsoft Word Online if you're an Office 365 subscriber. Apple has Pages, but I really highly recommend Google Docs just because it is very easy to use. A great team of people work on that behind the scenes and keep it running, and a lot of businesses rely on Google Documents for their infrastructure, so I know that you can rely on it as well. There are some other planning services out there. DJ Intelligence has a planning software. My friend DJ Lou Paris has a piece of software that he's been working on for a while that exists to do a lot of this planning as well. So there are other options out there, but if you are just starting off, I want to recommend the free tool of Google Docs. And the reason that I recommend that tool is because 1, it's free, but 2, it's easy for other people to get in there and, without much resistance. So you can make that document available and editable for other people to get in there and add their own thoughts and information within that timeline. And a lot of people either have a Gmail or Google account, or they can create one very easily for the wedding. But you can also make it so that even if you don't have a Google account, you can edit the document. And you can do that by going up to the blue share icon in the top right corner, clicking on that, and then editing the permissions to make sure that anyone with a link can edit that document. So that's the setting that I use. And then I'm just very particular about where that link goes. So I only send it to the bride and groom, and I let them know, hey, you can send this to your photographer, you can send this to your other vendors, but please know anyone with the link has the ability to edit it. And, as you get closer to the date, you can export that as a Word document or PDF if other people need to get it once it's finalized. But having a document like this allows you to set ground rules for communication. So I don't know about you, but there are so many different inputs coming at us these days. We've got text messages, we've got emails, we've got phone calls, Slack things, Facebook things, and how do we reconcile all that information into one place so that it's very clear, it's very direct, what is actually the most pertinent, the most important stuff that's going to allow us to do a good job. And I argue that using a Google Doc or using one document for all of that stuff is the best way to do so. And here's why. You don't want to be scrolling through your text messages on wedding day wondering if that, minuscule detail that they ask you to announce is still on your radar. Or you don't want to be going through email and trying to figure out, did I get that email and did I flag it and did I print it or, did it go in the right place? Instead, you want to be able to use those communication tools for figuring out what is the best thing to do or the best thing to say. And then you can park that finalized statement or that finalized plan in a place that is trusted. So having a trusted place for the things that you're going to need on the wedding day is really what this document is all about. So planning the day is really important, and keeping that flow is really important. But also, what are you going to need to know on that day? What are things that you might need to say? What are things that you might need to remember? You can park all of that stuff right on that timeline document, and as long as you have that document with you on the wedding day, makes it very simple to make sure that you can refer to that stuff. I know some other people like to use things like Evernote or OneNote or even just Apple Notes for keeping notes, and I definitely think that is a way to go about it. If that works for you, more power to you. You definitely want to find a tool that works for you, something that frees you up to exercise your planning abilities, your higher level thinking, allows you to, get in there and collaborate and figure out how to plan things out. But you got to think about it in two ways. What are you going to be able to pull up very easily on the wedding day? I always like to use paper. And the reason that I like to use paper, a printout, is because I don't have to worry about power, I don't have to worry about connection, and I don't have to worry about the battery dying or, losing it or the screen cracking or something along those lines. So what I do is I print out several timelines and I put them in different bags so that when I get to the event, I always have a timeline somewhere, and I print out a few extra copies so that I can hand them to other vendors as we're talking about the day and make sure that we're literally all looking off the same page. One of the phrases that I like to use is the idea that we're singing off the same song sheet. So when we're singing off the same song sheet, we are literally playing the same piece of music. We're playing in harmony. We are thinking about how we are all kind of orchestrating the event together, and having a document that is one place to do that allows you to be in that frame of mind. So I really see the plan and the process of getting ready for the wedding as the process of fleshing out the timeline, the process of thinking about how is the day going to go from beginning to end, and where do all the little pockets of music, where are the pockets of announcements, where's the pertinent information that people are going to need to know, where does all of that fit into the day? And there are a lot of different ways to think about the timeline depending on the area, the region that you live. It might be customary to do the first dance at one part of the night as opposed to one of the others, but it's really going to come down to what does the couple want to do? What does the couple want to do for their venue, for their style, for their personality and temperament? What is going to be appropriate for them? So when you sit down with a couple to plan out the wedding, when you help to type out and help to line out, line by line, what is going to happen for the wedding, you're able to put them at ease. You're able to put them in a place of clarity and put them in a place of here is where we need to fill in the information that we need to know. So something that I'll do when I meet with couples is I will open up a Google Doc and I'll make sure that they either have it on their laptop or an iPad, or sometimes they bring their phone to the meeting, and then we can pull up in the Google Doc app the same thing that I'm looking at, the same thing that we're working on together, and they're able to see right there in front of them what it is that they need to work on, put their attention on, etc. And if there's something that is uncertain, let's say we're not sure who's going to give the blessing. Let's say we're not sure if there's going to be sparklers at the end of the night or where the first dance is going to be. We can highlight that item in yellow or in whatever color is your favorite, and we can make it very clear this is still needs to be decided. This item still needs some clarity. This is where you can put things in there like, here's the song that's going to be used for the first dance. Here's the song that's going to be used for father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter, mother-son, whatever dances are going to be used, whatever, what special events that are going to happen throughout the night. You can get all of that in there. As it comes down to playlists and things like that, I just always tell people, you can send that to me. Like if you've got a list of top 10 must play songs, you can use that right in the timeline as well. Towards the bottom, you can say, here are the top 10 must plays. Here's some of the do not plays. Here's some of our other favorite songs. That's the way to go about doing that. What I've done, but I'm open to even changing my own process, is I've sent a separate song document that just outlines, here are the songs that we're definitely going to need to know. And then here's your top 10. Here's your do not plays, and etc. So you can go about doing that in any way that you want. But what I want to make very clear is that planning the wedding happens in your head. Planning the wedding is more about your thinking process and about having an ownership about what you're doing as a DJ than it is about filling in blocks in any old software that comes along. So my prediction is over the next several years, there's going to be more and more DJ planning software that comes out, more DJ apps and wedding apps and things like that that encourage the couple or even the professional to think through what needs to happen. But what's never going to be replaceable is the ability for yourself to do the critical thinking. Does this all line up? Does this all make sense for this venue and for how much time we have and how much distance needs to be covered for people walking from point A to point B or whatever it is? So your ability to think critically about the day in order, kind of line by line, is an invaluable skill that no matter what app you use is going to be something that you need to grow and cultivate and do. So that's why I recommend using Google Docs, because you start off with a blank slate. So what I do is I brand my Google Doc with my company name and my logo and my contact information. And then when I give it out to all the other vendors, what I'm also doing is I'm kind of giving them a business card. It's just one that includes all the information for the day of the event. So I would encourage you to think about possibly doing that. But I also want you to hear me in, you don't have to use Google Docs. You can use whatever you want. And you can do so in a way that makes it very clear about what's going to happen on that day. The other thing that I just want to recommend is, as you get ready to prepare for this wedding, what is the deadline that you want that timeline to be finalized? I suggest about 2 weeks before the wedding date. That's not always possible depending on when you get hired. But if you have a particular deadline on when you want to finalize that date, it makes it very easy then to have that conversation with your client about, here's when we need to finalize the information on this document. So it makes it very easy. Like I said before, but I want to reiterate this. You want to cross-reference you want to cross-check your timeline so that it matches the catering team, the photographer, if there's a videographer, if there's anybody else that's involved in the structure of the day, if there's a wedding coordinator or a venue coordinator, you want to double check to see that the way that you've put together the timeline is workable and that they're on the same page with you and that you've reconciled that with the couple or with the client to make sure that they are in agreement about that. I'd recommend that you set up reminders and check-ins for that timeline document. So if something comes along and you're just checking in, hey, have you added anything to the timeline recently? I want to remind you that that's the place that we want to keep all of our most important communication and park our reminders for the day of the wedding. But then it's really about that discipline of when things come your way, when you get a text or when you get an email or when you get this idea of, I need to be able to say this at the wedding. Can you remember to park it on that timeline? In other words, the timeline becomes your go-to place for all the information that's going to happen on the wedding day. In other words, as soon as you get an email, that you're also letting them know, hey, let's make sure this goes on the timeline. And that you're developing a trust and you're developing a system and a process that says we are all as a couple and as within this relationship between the DJ and the couple, we are going to make this effort to make the timeline trustable. So that when we look at that timeline, it's really what's going to happen on the wedding day and that you're going to be holding that on the wedding day. So I'll often say this to a couple, I'm going to be holding this piece of paper on the wedding day. So whatever you put on it is going to be in front of my face. And that, I always see this look of relief go on the face of the couple because they realize in that moment that they have the ability to make sure that we are literally on the same page about everything. And I think that is so valuable for the wedding DJ to be very trusted, to be in that position of trust from the couple, but also so that they know they have a way of making sure that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, that you're going to be held accountable for that stuff. So that is my proposal, or that is my plan, or that's kind of how I do things when it comes down to the timeline. All this information is going to be available in the PDF download, the action guide for today's thing. But I just want to, remind you as one last thing, planning and preparation is so important for the DJ. This is big part of the job. There's the DJing and the showing up and setting up your equipment and making sure that works. And of course, the music and keeping people dancing. But planning out the day and really getting clear on what's going to happen takes effort, it takes thought, and it takes concentration. This isn't something that you just do and just kind of check out and then hope for the best. So you really want to get into the position of clarity, of defining and getting very specific on what's going to happen to be able to make this wedding a success, and get away from the idea of just hoping that the information will be sent your way, because you don't want to be down to the final hour and wondering, is this what's supposed to be happening? You want to be very clear. This is exactly what's happening. We agreed on it. We all have it on a document that we agreed is the final thing. So that's all about how to plan and prepare for a wedding. If you have questions, or if you have other ideas that we can include in this podcast about how to plan and prepare even better, I'd love to welcome your thoughts. You can submit those over at weddingdjschool.com. As always, that PDF guide, as I mentioned, is available at weddingdjschool.com/podcast. You can also get it by texting Wedding DJ to 44222. That's Wedding DJ to 44222. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Happy planning, happy document creating. I hope you have a great day.